Welcome back to the Creating Distance podcast hosted by TA Sales. I'm your host, Tom Alaimo. Some people call me Tommy Tahoe. And each week on Fridays, we'll be bringing you an episode to break down with salespeople and sales leaders the top tips, tactics, strategies, stories that you need to get to the next level of your career and up-level yourself. So let's get into it.
All right, AJ Giaccia back on the pod, returning guest 3 or 4 years later. How we doing, sir?
Doing amazing, man. Doing amazing. Thanks for having me back. Excited to run it back with you.
Man, it's always good chatting with you. I was re-listening to our last episode where you were breaking down really the fundamentals of what makes a great enterprise rep. How do you manage your time and your day, your process? And now you find yourself in a whole new world a couple years later as a leader. Tynes has experienced a ton of growth. You have, experienced some personal growth of becoming a dad and everything else. So it's funny how just a couple years later, we're in the same place, but we're also in a much different place having this conversation.
Time flies when you're having fun, man. Yeah, good things have been happening. So, now a husband and a father, which is cool since we last spoke. And yeah, definitely taking some cool updates within Tynes too.
Yeah, I love it, man. So walk me through, the transition about 6 months ago, I think, is when you stepped into enterprise sales leader role. And, you had spent a decade plus as an individual contributor coming up from BDR to AE, and then spending the last handful of years as an enterprise and strategic rep at Tynes, at Trey before that, a handful of other companies. And, really my perception of you as someone that really loved to master that craft of individual selling, controlling your own destiny and things like that, having discipline and thoughtfulness. And so it does not surprise me at all that you stepped into leadership. And I'm curious what drove that decision for you and how have the first few months been?
Yeah, there's a couple of different components that drove this for me. First and foremost, I have such an amazing leadership team that I've learned and grown so much with over the last 4 years. Specifically, my boss, Chris Gowan's, has been just a phenomenal leader for me, both personally and professionally. He's a guy who leads from the front. He does nothing but care about the individual more than the outcome, and I've taken a lot of that philosophy in how I take my day-to-day with my current team. Him, as well as Ryan Crump, our general manager of North America, both two guys that I look up to. I call them Papa Crump because they're both guys that I can come to within my day-to-day from a Tynes perspective, but also on the personal front, just to kind of help navigate myself through early days of marriage and then fatherhood now, which has been a fun journey. And then we've got obviously some great, phenomenal C-level at the top as well with Terry Tripp, an individual who's joined us from MuleSoft, as well as both of our co-founders, Owen Hinchy and Thomas Kinsella, who've both been phenomenal leaders and mentors for me. Just seeing how they navigate just very complex processes and just scale from an overall company perspective, going from Series A to B to C and taking on the kind of scale and growth that we've had. Just been phenomenal to see that these guys do it with such grace and class. So from jumping, from my perspective of taking that 10-year, 11-year or so framework of being an IC and kind of really wanting to learn the ins and the outs, right, and master the craft of how I get into these enterprise discussions, figure out how to navigate complex cycles, really build the network too, which I think is a big component of enterprise selling, and mastering obviously the fundamentals of making sure that individuals kind of know who you are as an individual, but also that you've got, a skill set that can be carried forward into not only a first discussion, but into, a relationship in the long term. It's just areas that I pride myself on. And network's a big component for me of what I've been able to leverage and lean on and grow from. For a lot of the areas though, I think I took the aspects of I've seen a lot throughout the 3.5 years or so being in seat at Tynes and grown from a enterprise seller into the strategic team, which was a great jump in general for me personally. the growth that we've seen as a company has been a big component for me of like the product and the evolution. So I've been very fortunate, obviously, to obviously have great leaders that can guide me through the process, but also have a product that's grown really nicely within a market segment in security automation and IT operation where there's a lot of need and a lot of demand that we've been able to capitalize on. So been fortunate enough to ride that wave of an amazing product team, as well as just amazing growth that we've been able to accomplish within our customer base. So you kind of couple those things, then you look at, okay, the makeup and the culture that we have from a team perspective. The team that I work with now on the day in and day out is the Enterprise West Squad. And I took a look at, the leadership and the guidance that I'm getting as I think about a potential move from being an individual contributor, knowing the game that I've, established there, the good and the bad that I've been able to take, and then looking at the team makeup of just 6, 7, and going to be 8 here, amazing individuals that I've just come to really enjoy as individuals, and just seeing the makeup of what they do in and day out. And they were actually the biggest component for me of why I wanted to take this role. They're individuals that I admire greatly as personal humans and friends, but also individuals that are very much, I see a lot of myself in them. They're individuals that want to up-level their craft. They're individuals that want to drive an outcome that's, not only good for themselves, but also for the team and for the company. And the humbleness that they all embody is just an area that I admire greatly. And I think that's one, big factor for me as we continue to build our culture here at Tynes, that this base of individuals, this, seven individuals that we have now, and I guess soon to be 8, really just embody that no ego, humble mentality, individuals that want to get up and have that growth mindset and just continue to drive the ball forward and drive the company forward. Look at me, I'm using my coaching terminology, but drive the ball forward, drive the organization forward.
Coming in early.
That's exactly right. Drive the company forward, and been able to get behind that quite nicely, and they've just made the transition extremely easy. So, product leadership were big areas, but the team I think is a big area for me, and just again the relationships that I've been able to develop with them, see the things that I can help change in their day-to-day game and evolution of kind of where they want to get to as sellers, and just ultimately help them get to their goals. I've found that as a really, really cool, compelling, day-to-day driver for me that gets me up and wants me to go get better every day, but in a different sense of what I was doing in the individual contributor side.
What do you think has been the hardest part in that transition in the last 6 months? Maybe something you didn't expect, or that maybe surprised you a bit?
Finding enough time in the day to answer the questions. I think for me, I've always been someone who very much prides myself on getting answers effectively, getting answers quickly, and there's constantly a battle, a tug and pull of having to prioritize and focus which answers I get out now quickly and effectively versus things that just need to be responded to and get addressed. There are just a lot of different time commitments that I think I've had the pleasure of learning how to navigate, and I call it pleasure. There's been a lot of challenges with that as well. That my time management has been the biggest challenge for me. Was at one point managing one calendar, and I'm managing 8, 9, 10 calendars between our respective leadership team and my team and individually. So that's been the biggest challenge and jump for me.
So our last pod, you gave a master class in, if you are an enterprise rep, and at that point an enterprise rep that also didn't wasn't a parent at the time, so that changes life and time management. But you give a master class of, if that's your life scenario, it's like get up early, get the workout in, get the mindset right, prospecting in the morning, working on high priority things throughout the morning. As the day progresses, you're starting to get some of that more like administrative, keep the ball moving forward, talking about response times, making sure there's not open loops, all that type of stuff. Just the daily discipline that, if I'm hiring a sales rep, that's like to a T what I would want. How does that look for you now? Like, what does a day in the life look like now that you're in this type of a role?
I still carry a lot of those same principles, but they're in a different view and a different lens. So still doing the early morning workouts. I think that's just one of those me time moments that grounds me. It gets me set for the day, allows me to take an outward look on the day that I've already accomplished something, and have that good basis of like my energy's peaking. Still very much not on the coffee hype, so I think that is my coffee. Is my energy boost for the morning is getting that.
I can't agree with you on that, but we'll keep going.
No, totally. There's a lot of folks that challenge me on that one, but so my early morning workout's still there. Again, it just grounds me, gets my foundation set for the day. I still do a lot of the high priority, or try to get a lot of the high priority tasks done in the morning. I try to use that before noon time frame of, a lot of the, potential challenging discussions that need to happen, whether they're internally or externally with clients or prospects, or even internally with, high priority items that need to get done with individuals, personnel, or projects or initiatives that are happening internally. And a lot of that, again, is pretty regimented, where I try to make that, not necessarily focus time, but definitely a pointed time of the day where a lot of the challenging tasks are being handled. Now, I can't control what comes up after noon anymore. There's a lot of things that need my attention that come up between 12 and 4. But I've found that I can get a lot of the, quote unquote, less pressure tasks, like a lot of my one-on-ones or my project related work, where I'm leaving that towards the back half of the day, where I think in our last discussion I mentioned more like the administrative tasks. I still kind of use that back half of the day where I'm not necessarily winding down, but things that maybe aren't necessarily as pressing to get addressed, or do need to get addressed, but they've got a level of priority that aren't the same as potentially a client engagement or a prospect discussion, are definitely the back half of my day. So I still use that time frame as again, just the things that I need to be regimented on, and make sure they're timely and worked on correctly, but have the luxury of a little bit more of the less pressure. And then one thing I've really done, I think to my comment before on time management, is I've found myself really trying to balance the switch off time. And so one area that I've committed to, and I know you're in this, or you were formerly with this group, Alluvians. I've joined their community in this last year, and shout out to Alex Kramer and team. I've just absolutely loved getting engaged with them. Yeah, big time. Shout out to Alex. They've really given me this new basis of committing to respective things that are going to move the needle for me in my personal and my professional life. And one of those, again, is that commitment to time with my family, and how aligning my time with my family, makes me a better professional, allows me to focus and have more clarity on the day-to-day that I get into in my professional world. So one area that I've done is every single night from 5 to 6:30, I've got a hold on my calendar. It's do not book. It's my dedicated family time. So it's the time that I get with my son and my wife. We do our dinner time together. We do bath time, bedtime, story time with my son. He's about to be 2 years old, so he's still got the early bedtime, which is nice. But I've just found that dedicated commitment now, the same challenges and questions are still going to be there at 6:30 that are there at 5 o'clock. And unless there's something extremely pressing, from a dinner engagement or, some sort of negotiation that's getting run on past 5 o'clock, I'm able to commit to that time frame and, really be present with my team, with my family, that allows me to then be, refocused when I get back online in the evening to address things on the nightcap that need to get prepped for the day before, or need to get handled in the same day. So that's the 5 to 6:30, and then at the night I still do my daily prep for the following day, for the upcoming day. That just allows me to make sure I've got a good mindset and a good framework for what needs to be attacked and obviously handled in the following day, and I prioritize my calendar accordingly.
You think it's a coincidence that you joined leadership not too long after you became a father? Or do you think some of the changes in your personal life and what your, priorities are opened up the idea that it might be interesting or more fulfilling to lead others? Or do you think you just kind of got to that point in your sales career or maybe it was just a great opportunity at times and the two might be unrelated?
It's a combination of all three, I think. I think there was definitely unique opportunity at times that I saw that could help me move the needle for me with my career path and things that I wanted, and ultimately see that I've got leaders and mentors that can help me get into a solid leadership state and obviously grow as a leader. So I think that was just an advantageous, opportunistic time frame for me. I do think the component of being a dad gave me the nudge of saying, hey, now I'm in charge of leading a young child and my son that I want to make sure I'm doing the day-to-day things that are right for him to look up to and obviously grow into a great man, great human. And not saying that that's the same day to day that I carry with my team, but it is definitely a component of, I want to do the right things by my team and have them have a good role model, mentor, leader to look up to that, stays steadfast and calm in the challenging times, but also, is able to, enjoy and ride the highs in the successful times and, find that balance and be kind of the same dude throughout. So yeah, I think the dad component, definitely the fatherhood component gave me an added nudge to wanting to take on the leadership role.
So I feel like something that you and I are both square bullseye on the same page on is craft. You've already said the word craft, sales craft, 2 or 3 times throughout this conversation. And just from getting to know you, I know that is a passion of yours. And many people view your job as your job. And, you clock in and clock out, whether it's sales or, anything else. But to be exceptional and to really be your best, you, in my opinion, have to view it as a craft. You have to view it as something that you can continue to sharpen and elevate. So I'd be curious, when you think about the sales craft, I say, AJ, I'm new to sales. I want to get good at the craft. Like, what would you coach me? What would you tell me to work on? What does the craft mean to you?
I'm going to steal a page out of our CRO Terry Tripp's book and the mastering of the fundamentals. I think we might have talked about this in our last podcast as well, where I think there's so many folks that overlook just the fundamentals and the basics, right, of the tactical things around pre-call research, right, and just making sure that you're doing all the necessary prep work and homework to get you in a position where you can have an effective sales call, whether it's a first call, second call, third call, closing call, you name it. I think that just that fundamental component of taking the little things and having those kind of build to the bigger things that add to the long-term success. And frankly speaking, I don't try to boil the ocean on my craft. I rather try to hone in every day on just 1 or 2 things that can help me get better as an individual, whether it's the small tactical things of making sure that we've got clear purpose, agenda, and an outcome for a specific call, or whether I'm asking the difficult questions that, potentially sellers don't want to ask that help move the needle in a specific competitive deal situation, whether it's learning a new technique from a legal standpoint that I didn't know, could be handled and, obviously help, negate certain challenges that are going on from a contractual standpoint, right? I think there's so many little things there, like fundamentally, that I try not to overlook and think like, okay, like, hey, I got to go, be some guru and, figure out all the ins and the outs. I want to get all the specific, like, little things that would allow me to, move the needle, 1% for myself every day, and continue to get better at my craft in the small increments that ultimately add up to a big difference. So probably a very generic answer for you, but I guess for me, again, I think the mastering those fundamentals of just the making sure you got all the foundations set for every engagement, for every interaction, leads to a great outcome that ultimately you can continue to build on.
So, okay, I like that. Let's take it a step deeper. So I come to you, I'm on your team, and I'm like, AJ, or maybe I don't even have to tell you, maybe you see that the numbers are struggling a little bit. It's like, man, I'm not where I want to be going into Q3. I didn't hit my number last quarter. I'm hungry. I'm motivated. So like my effort is not the problem. But I feel like maybe I am trying to boil the ocean, or I'm just not doing things well. Like, where would you start with me to get me thinking in the right direction and get me going like in the right spot? Or what questions maybe would you ask if that's the route?
Yeah, the first piece I think I'd probably look at what's going on within the pipe gen motion for yourself, right? Like, what are you actively looking at on the day to day? Are you focusing on the right profiles? Are you focusing on the right accounts? Are you effectively reaching out in the right channels that we should be targeting individuals through, whether that's, your respective emails, calls, LinkedIn's, etc. So just the basics, right? Those fundamentals of, do we have the foundation set that's allowing you to effectively go get what you want, which is creating that pipeline to ultimately turn that into closed revenue. Once we diagnose where the gaps are within the foundational stuff, then it's getting into more of the nitty gritty of, okay, well, if you're doing all that foundation stuff correctly, what's going on within the messaging that's not allowing this to convert into a first call or convert from an intro to a disco or a disco to a POV, and really dissecting kind of what's going on within those respective steps. Sometimes I'll find it in the messaging, right? Sometimes we'll say, hey, maybe tweak some wording here, tweak some messaging here, throw in some additional, compelling metrics that would be interesting for this level of individual who has, an analogous challenge that we solved at this customer. Try to use this type of language and just kind of give them a different approach to attacking that problem. That would be kind of like the first, couple things. And then, ultimately I take a step back too and look at the individual as a whole. Like what's going on in the day to day that's not letting you, effectively get to your goals, right? Are you doing the little things for yourself personally that allow you to show up as an individual at work to be effective? Are you exercising if that's your thing? Are you reading books if that's your thing? Are you, out there, singing in your local church choir, if that's your thing, right? I don't know what the situation, but if you're not doing those little things, that actually is affecting your day to day too, to show up. So, once you get through the tactical things of like, hey, is the pipe gen creation working to where you can obviously get into cycles that allow you to get into technical evaluations and, get some closed deals out there. Great. We've dissected that stuff to a T. Now, what's going on with you on the personal side? I think those are, combine those two components. And that's generally how I like to approach those situations, because I find that the personal is just so correlated on the day to day, as it's pretty obvious to state. But I think when something's not right on the personal, it really does impact, our day to day. And hopefully I can be, a guiding, a guiding force for individuals that, would allow them to check themselves in their own capacity, or have me help them, find and dissect what's going on for them personally, that will allow them to make a few tweaks. And then, ultimately that reignites things to get back into that Q3 mindset of getting in the pipe gen motion and obviously turn things around from a performance standpoint.
Yeah. You said earlier in the conversation, I'm going to paraphrase you, but something to the extent of, some of the people that you look up to at times that have been mentors to you, view you and other people on the team, as yourselves, as people, not just as a number, more or less. I think that's kind of like the notion that you were getting across. And I think we all want our boss or our manager to see us that way. And we all want to see other people that way as a leader. But on the flip side, I've also been in roles where the top-down pressure is real in sales. And there are numbers to hit, and there are always on any given team a rep or reps that are, some that are ahead and some that are behind. And so I'd be curious what your philosophy is, or how you keep that top of mind. Like you probably do. I think any leader of any sort receives some sort of pressure coming from the top down, or even maybe it's just intrinsic, like, hey, we've got a number to hit, and that's part of the job. But I can't let that be felt by everyone on the team. Like I can apply some targeted pressure, but I don't want to just be like dumping my stress on them, because that's not going to help them perform better. So how do you filter that out so that you can still have that conversation with me that's focused on how I might need to be showing up in my own personal life, despite the fact that, I'm forecasting 60% to goal, and we probably have to have some tough conversations, but you don't want to overexert kind of like the fire alarm, so to speak, and you want to remain calm and cool.
I've learned this through two leaders that I've had. My former boss, Sid Cumrin, who's just an absolute phenomenal leader and mentor for me, as well as my current boss and one of my best friends now, Chris Gowans, where they keep things in such a real, direct fashion that it's just easy to have those like even keel, very direct discussions with these guys. And, I mentioned the comment that they care about me more than the outcome, right? And that obviously, increases my performance. And I think I carry a little bit of carry a lot of that philosophy in my day to day. But I do it in a way where I want them to know that we're in this together, right? There's a component of, we're on a mission, we're on a goal, despite maybe some struggles that are going on. I'm not just going to write you off and we're going to, scrap this and, I'm going to move on to the next, next best thing, right? We're in this together. There's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be highs and lows. That is sales. I think that's, the trust that I try to build with my team members individually, is that they know that we're going to be in it to through the good and the bad times. So I think, for me, it's just really a matter of keeping that direct, real line of conversation where, even in the tough situations where, if you're tracking 50-60% of goal, we're aligned on that. And there's a real discussion of like, this isn't good. This isn't going well, but we're going to figure out a path to get forward with it and, roll up our sleeves and figure out how to get it done. Now, that could go number of different ways, but I felt, and again, I feel this from the coaching and the guidance that I get from Chris and, from past leaders as well, that just having that level of realness and openness and trust has just allowed for individuals to lean back into you and be like, okay, I get it. Now I'm more caring about letting, my leader down, that I'm missing my number or missing our team goal, that ultimately, I need to go, back to the drawing board and figure things out and do, maybe take some additional coaching or take some additional outside perspective that would help me turn things around in general. So I don't know if that was, I might have rambled on that one specifically, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight on how I'd approach it.
Yeah, kind of, I think the takeaway that I've got from that is that you guys have developed trust within each other and also, an agreement, whether spoken or otherwise, of, hey, we're in this for the long haul. We're in this to achieve a particular goal, and I'm not gonna run at the first sign of danger. You're not gonna run at the first sign of danger. But if there is danger, like we might need to course correct, we might need to do some things differently. But it's not like, hey, we lose one big deal and I'm cut, or we have one off month and I'm going to go looking for the next gig that pays me an extra 20K, OT. It's like we're in this to really try to like get somewhere. And I think you have to, I think that's a somewhat unique, kind of like rare relationship in the sales world and in the leadership world where, I do think a lot of folks are more short-term focused and are looking at stepping stones. And so I think being able to find someone and be able to be someone that is ready to like kind of get in place and say like, all right, I'm committed. As long as I keep, they treat me well, like I'm going to keep giving my all. And like, I'm looking at this in a long-term outcome, opportunity. I think that sets you up for a more successful relationship and a more trusting relationship.
I'd 100% agree, and I think there's a different component to double down on there from our perspective, and what's different, a little bit different than maybe traditional sales cultures at times, is that we really do focus on the team goal. And sure, we talk about individual quotas in our one-on-ones and stuff, but it's such a team game within Tines, specifically on our West Coast, because I can speak for them just on the day-to-day. But we really do look at just the team numbers and how we're tracking to the team numbers, and when we're in team calls, we don't look at individual quotas or how individuals are doing. We look at, hey, what's rising the tide for the entire team, right? Who's maybe there's an outlier from a performer standpoint in the quarter. We'll certainly call that out and give praise where praise is due, but we really do embody the team first mentality. I think that's part of what we build that trust around, is that individuals don't want to not just let the leadership down. They don't want to let each other down. And I think that's really what's unique about our culture at times, is that everyone they care so much about each other. And I mean, great friends outside of the office, hang out outside of the office, having parties with each other, etc. And getting the kids together, whatever you want to do, whatever the social outing is of the day. But I just think there's a unique component of the team camaraderie and team trust that just allows us, again, when those direct and needed conversations come up, where they're going to be difficult ones for sure, there's a realness and not a maybe a little bit of sense of anxiety and panic, but with a reality of what the actual situation is. And I think that's led to everyone having great success.
Yeah, I think the stereotype of an enterprise seller is the lone wolf rep. That's like, AJ, leave me alone. I'll talk to you. Like, I've got one of my best friends. He's a great rep. In like the networking security world, and he's got a handful of customers, and he crushes. And he's like, I talk to my manager, once a month, about a couple deals, but just like leave me alone and let me do my thing. And it sounds like that's not at all like the culture that you all are fostering and developing there. So I'm curious if that's something that gets sorted out at all in the interview process of finding particular people, or do you think it's really more about honing in once you're there and talking about those team meetings and other ways that you're building kind of like that camaraderie within the team?
It is both. As part of the interview process, we are sussing out, is this an individual that culturally can come in here and rise the tide with the entire team, right? Yeah. Not an individual that's going to come in here and just be that lone wolf and, quote unquote greedy salesperson that just, wants everything their way and just stay out of my way. We want an individual that's going to come in here and help us move the needle collectively as a team, because ultimately we find that will move the needle for all the individuals downstream or on the team as well. I know that's really set by the leadership at the top. And I think Terry, Ryan, Chris have just done a phenomenal job of really ensuring that the cultural mindset of like the team goals that we want to get to are ultimately going to get us to where we want to get to as a company. And it's showing in our results. Chris, I work so closely with Chris at this point. He's an individual that the culture that he's built here. I'm speaking about Chris Gowans, by the way, who's the RVP of the West. He has built such a culture of trust and partnership and collaboration that, we got strategic sellers that collaborate with some of our commercial AEs. We got enterprise sellers who are going to strategic sellers for advice. We got, so much, unity across the team that if we have an individual that we sniff out for a second doesn't want to come in here and be a part of that, we generally don't let them go through from from an interview process or move them forward. But I will say the individuals, once you get in here, you just instantly feel that vibe, that aura that's going on with the team where you're like, I want to be a part of this. Like, I want to be a part of a unique sales org that's not, in there just banging phones and everyone's miserable, just trying to run to a quota. We want to do it with some fun and some passion. I know that we're delivering amazing things for our customers and our prospects, but we're doing it with fun and doing it in a unique way where individuals want to engage back with us. And ultimately, that creates an environment of success and fun that all of us are very fortunate to be a part of.
So going, a little bit deeper into like the hiring side of things, most or all of your sales career has been in a fairly technical space within B2B tech, and I think your world is a little bit of it feels like an entirely different planet to some people like me whose original sales career was in something like marketing tech or sales tech or some of these technologies that are very easy to understand. It's like Gong records your sales call, gives you data, I only need a sales engineer in a very, very rare case. Otherwise, I'm running the entire sales process. And that's completely a different world than the types of conversations that you all are having. So when you're thinking about the most successful reps that you've seen, whether it be at Tynes or in some of your past endeavors, how important is it for them to have a technical background? And is there any substitute for that? Like, are there any cases where someone can come in without that and still be very successful at the enterprise or strategic level?
I think the technical acumen and just technical background is unique in for a number of different ways. I had the very, very fortunate opportunity to learn supply chain integration in my early stage of career, where I was exposed to so many unique things associated to, API integrations and different data transformations and data formats, et cetera, that just kind of gave me a foundation to let me continue to kind of learn the automation game and learn the overall business process automation space. Went from supply chain integration to general automation to security automation. And I think they're the best sellers that I've seen, have a good subset of knowledge on their space and their sphere, right? And things that they know that they can show up to a call and be persuasive and be influential to a prospective buyer, right? And I think for me, what I've seen is that the individuals that have, a baseline of knowledge from a technical standpoint, whether it's, general API and, general API knowledge, technical knowledge around how connecting APIs or integrating APIs work, or how, the respective downstream data formats will work, or even broadening it a little bit to just having just general business process knowledge allows them to go in there and quickly gain credibility into a discussion and be a trusted advisor for a potential, buyer or prospect, right? So, I think for me, we do look for individuals that have technical backgrounds. I think we are, I'm not saying that they have to be a solution engineer by any means, but we look for individuals that, hey, have familiarity with, process automation or have worked in a technical security space, specifically looking at Tines, worked in a technical security space that would carry over into what a successful rep at Tines would look like, or would obviously be able to succeed at. And for us, I think that technical background, whether it's having deep security knowledge on a specific subset of applications or a specific space within security, that just having that familiarity with the technical jargon, the technical acumen, how to go deep on questioning associated to a process or a use case that technically we can go solve from a Tines perspective, allows the best reps to then, individuals to then, be successful in their respective role, and obviously have come out the gates quickly. Now, on the flip side, I have seen non-technical individuals come in here and through their level of sales craft, right, in the sense of like knowing where to find business value, find pain points, find areas of need for a prospect, set aside the technical components, can quickly accelerate their career path within Tines specifically. And there's a few individuals on the team now that I can think of that didn't come from technical backgrounds, but certainly had enough salesmanship to know what it is to go find business pain, and then tie in specifically like, hey, these are the high level components that technically solution wise we'd be able to fit. Let me bring in my solution engineer that would help us ensure that we're meeting the expectations or the requirements that you would have. So again, I think I've seen both sides of the coins, and again, from an interview perspective, I'm not necessarily going in deep on somebody and saying, hey, like, do you know how to work, do you have deep familiarity with APIs, business process automation, you're familiar with the security space? I think if a couple of those are checked, or even one of those are checked, it gives me comfort that there's an individual that, potentially has the right stuff that we can go in there and continue to train and build upon to go have success. The biggest thing that I'm looking for is, are they hungry to go learn that? Right? Are they showing like, hey, maybe I don't necessarily, have the API background, the API knowledge, or, the business process automation knowledge, but I'm very specific in, network security or cloud security, or, and chances are they've got enough of the acumen there. But if they're showing eagerness to say, hey, this is an area that, I need to get better with. And frankly speaking, I love that level of humbleness that I don't know it all, but I'm certainly an individual that can go out there and want to learn it and take this forward with you. That just gives me, knowing that they're coachable and have the building blocks to get forward, lends me to believe that they'll be somewhat successful within their career path at Tines.
Yeah. All right, I want to try something.
Yeah.
First ever segment here on the Creating Distance podcast. It's gonna be a segment called The One Thing, because I love the book. I'm not sure if you ever read it, called The One Thing by Gary Keller. I'm going to do a little bit of rapid fire questions as it relates to the craft of leadership and sales leadership that you're stepping into and have stepped into. So, first question. Last episode, we talked about some of your favorite books that have helped you with personal development and within the craft of sales. But is there any one book that you would recommend to someone stepping into their first leadership role, or even considering their first leadership role?
I'll send you some other thoughts on some leadership books after we get off this cast, because I'm blanking on the ones that I would recommend.
Okay. I just brought on, this is a real situation, I just brought on my first SDR to TA sales. So what do you think is one thing that I can do, make sure that I either do every week or avoid every week in order to create a great culture within my business?
Culture-wise, it's interesting because I feel like at a BDR function, the specificity component comes to me of like being specific on goals that you want to get across for the week. Culture-wise, though, I think there's an element.
Say it's the whole team. There's a handful of us on the team, not only one in sales, but yeah. Anyways, if that helps.
I would say it's just, given the size that you guys are at, is something tactical in nature. Is probably having a Friday check-in and getting a pulse check from everyone, both personally and how they're feeling for the week, but also kind of what's the mindset heading into the weekend. And that obviously, I think, just gives you a reality check of, did we get things going in the direction that we wanted for the week, and more importantly, are we setting ourselves up for success on the following week? And that could be a 15, 20 minute, 30 minute conversation, but I think that might be interesting for you culturally as you start to build the team out.
Okay. You seem to be very comfortable with hard conversations. I don't know. That's just the vibe that I get, that you don't get, maybe you don't get nervous, or maybe you just handle it well. If I'm about to have a really hard conversation, whether it's with a customer or a team member or anything, what's one thing that I should keep in mind to either stay calm or just have a more productive, fruitful conversation?
Taking a book out, or taking a chip page out of my Alluvians team here of just taking a few deep breaths before you get into those tough conversations, I think has been a big practice for me, of knowing that there's going to be, some sort of potential anxiety-ridden, component to the discussion. Being able to kind of focus on my breath has been an interesting tactic I've been utilizing. What was the question? Sorry, I guess I blanked. I'm more thinking tactically. What was the specific there for you?
That could be that. I think that's a solid answer. It's just one thought, or one strategy for handling those tough conversations better. So taking a couple deep breaths before that's a bingo, right? That right down the middle.
Also, being specific. Don't leave any don't leave any vagueness to particularly the topic at hand, because I think that's one area that I've found for me is that when I have any sort of vagueness in my challenging discussions, it leaves things in a worse state than they were before. And then I find myself doing, backtracking a little bit, having to go have a second or third conversation to get around it. And that doesn't happen, very often, but I think the specificity component is a big one for me.
All right, 2 final questions for you, AJ, before we wrap. Still in this theme, what's one thing that if I talked to you on December 31st of this year that you would have hoped would have happened, you accomplished, you embodied it, however you want to interpret that question. But the difference between now and the end of this year, what's one thing that you'd like to have done?
Successfully look back and say that my wife and my son had a great 2025 and they are happy and healthy.
Love it. It's a great answer. Then the last question that I got for you is, who is one person that you think should come on the podcast next? But the caveat is always that you have to either know them or I have to be able to reference your name. You can't just throw out some, Obama, unless you can come and make that text intro.
I think you got to run it back with our guy, Ralph Barcy. I feel like I think that one's overdue. I think I mentioned The Godfather. Yeah. I still pull things from his LinkedIn posts all the time. I'd say Barcy running it back, especially in his new role at VP of Sales at Kahoot, would be an interesting one. I don't know if you ever connected with Vic Baglio. He was my reference 4 years back. But if you guys haven't connected, I got to get you guys connected. He could be another interesting one to bring on the podcast. Both great masters of their craft.
Yeah, I just shouted out Barcy. I was on a webinar today and saw his upside down pyramid for prospecting and pipe gen. I'm like, man, I got to shout this out. This is a great tactic right there. So I love it, man. I want to just give you the last opportunity first to just say thanks for coming on, sharing your time, sharing your wisdom. So I always learn a lot when I chat with you, but want to just give you a chance to shout out anything, where people can reach you, learn more about Tines, anything else that you're passionate about that you want to riff on.
Yeah, thanks so much again for having me on, man. Such a pleasure to run it back with you here. You've done so much phenomenal work for us in the community and in the space. I know obviously we pulled you into our Tines org specifically. You've done wonders for our BDR team. I know they rave about you. I still see some TA posts that happen internally for our BDR org. So shout out to the Tines BDR team. I'm just passionate about what's going on within the in the security space right now. I'm also passionate about what's going on in the AI space. We got some pretty cool partnerships that are brewing right now with this group called Pair AI. So I encourage you to check them out. They're doing some AI like coaching type scenarios.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, good group out of Boston. Another group that obviously I got a lot of love for is David Levy over there and Andrew Levy out of Aircover AI. I think I shouted them out in our last session. They've come a long way with their Zoom coaching app as well. So I think it's all chat platform coaching app now. But both two orgs that I'm pretty interested and passionate about right now and tracking their growth. But yeah, overall. Yeah, grateful to be back on, man, and wishing you continued success here in the 2025.
Appreciate you, man. This is a great conversation. Excited for everything that's going on in your world, personally, professionally, and maybe in next year we'll have to run it back and see where we're at there, man. I appreciate your time.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, man. You too.
Thanks for checking out that episode. Two quick things as a takeaway. Number one, we would feel honored if you left a review wherever you're listening to this podcast, if it's on Spotify or Apple or YouTube, to just let us know how we're doing, what else you'd like to see. If you'd like to learn more about us, you can check us out at tasales.co. Love to hear from you there. Much love. Have a great week.